Welcome to our Ambassador Interviews webzine. My name is Yvonne Kim, and I'm the Executive Director of Asia Society Korea. Today, it is our honor to interview Her Excellency Maria Theresa Dizon-De Vega, Ambassador of the Philippines to South Korea. She is a career diplomat with over 25 years of experience serving in different parts of the world. She joined the Department of Foreign Affairs in Philippines after placing first in the Foreign Service Officers exam in 1994. And she has since served in various offices in the Department of Foreign Affairs, as well as foreign postings in Mexico, Hong Kong, the United Kingdom, and New York. She is the recipient of various awards and decorations conferred by past presidents of the Republic of the Philippines, as well as by the government of the Kingdom of Spain for her services. And she is also a dear friend of our organization, and we very much appreciate the ambassador's ongoing support towards Asia Society. Your Excellency, thank you so much for agreeing to take the time out of your very busy schedule to join us today. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Annyeonghasimnika to everyone listening in or viewing this webzine interview with the Asia Society. I'm doing fine, Yvonne. It's been a hectic 3 months here in Seoul after leaving my most recent posting as Philippine Ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany. It's good to see familiar institutions again, to touch base with them, like the Asia Society. As you mentioned, I've had a long history of engagement as a diplomat with the Asia Society from my earliest postings in Hong Kong and up to now. And of course, I had the opportunity to work quite extensively with the Asia Society in New York City when I was posted there. So it's good to re-engage with your organization.
Thank you so much, and we're really happy to have you with us at Asia Society and also in the country. We have so much to talk about and also to partner on various programs. But just like our relationship, the Philippines and South Korea as countries have developed the alliance for a long time, and we have been great friends for a long time. And the Philippines deployed the 5th largest forces during the Korean War, even though it was a hard time as your nation just achieved independence in 4 years, and we're forever grateful for that. And thanks to the support, our two nations have strengthened this relationship. And we had the first Joint Defense Cooperation Committee last year. So please tell us how you evaluate the Philippines and ROK Defense Cooperation and what we can expect in our further relationship.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Indeed, the defense relationship between the Philippines and the Republic of Korea is one I would characterize as being very engaged and robust. Of course, the historical underpinnings date back 71 years ago. We just commemorated the 71st anniversary of the send-off for the PEFTOC, that's the Philippine Expeditionary Force in Korea during the Korean War. So it's really underpinned by the shared sacrifices of the very courageous and brave members of our armed forces, fighting for democracy and freedom and peace side by side with their Korean friends and colleagues. And this has really served as the basis for very engaged and even high level ties in the defense cooperation field. As you mentioned, the Philippines hosted the inaugural Philippines-Korea Joint Defense Cooperation Committee, the JDCC, meeting in October 2020, just over a year ago. Of course, this had to be done virtually because we were in the throes of a pandemic. But hopefully there will be more opportunities for at least hybrid or in-person, face-to-face meetings. And This actually continues to this day. We have a very active defense procurement procurement program with Korea. We have several memorandums of understanding in the defense field, such as on defense logistics and industry cooperation, on mutual logistics cooperation, and also an MOU for a regular defense dialogue mechanism. And we have a 2015 agreement between our two countries on the protection of classified military information, and also an expansion of renewable energy development between the Department of National Defense and our Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy. And Korea is becoming increasingly a vital partner in the defense modernization program of the Philippines. In fact, our latest acquisitions for our maritime enhancement have come from Korea. And we are looking at further defense cooperation, particularly in the procurement field, in the coming months and years. We are currently in the second phase of our defense modernization program for the Philippines. In our system, we call it Horizon. So Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. We're about to close the Horizon 2 phase, where South Korea has been a very important partner. And we're looking forward to South Korean participation in the next phase, the Horizon 3 phase, which should start sometime next year. So again, a very, very important aspect of our relations, and not just bilaterally, but also multilaterally. Korea is hosting this year the UN Peacekeeping International Conference, and we are sending a high-level delegation to this conference before the end of the year.
I mean, as you mentioned, we have so many possibilities, but the COVID has unfortunately stopped us temporarily from going forward with various projects. But despite the COVID crisis, your Build, BBB program has provided over 6 million jobs in the last 4 years. It's remarkable. And there are so many ongoing projects, including the construction of a new Cebu International Container Port, which is financially supported by South Korea's Export-Import Bank of Korea. And the Philippines is pursuing economic development on focusing on constructing a number of infrastructures with the various programs, including BBB. But please, can you explain the specific goals and strategies of the BBB initiative and how the plans are going to be successfully implemented and completed?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. There were so many things that we couldn't do during the pandemic. Hopefully now we're seeing, a shift in managing the pandemic in many countries in the world, including the Philippines and Korea. But one thing that the Philippine government pursued throughout the pandemic, even during the most difficult periods of the pandemic, was to ensure that the Build program would continue, particularly the critical projects, those which were at very important, very vital stages of completion or construction. These were the first things that our economic managers presented to the Office of the President and to the interagency task force in the Philippines for managing the COVID response, to allow to continue with, of course, the safety protocols in place. And the Build program has been touted as the most ambitious infrastructure program in our country in the last few decades. It is a whole of government approach program designed to bring the infrastructure, both the hard infrastructure of the country, and also the soft infrastructure in terms of connectivity at par with many of our developed partners. So this includes connectivity through rail networks, through other transportation networks, road networks, links between road networks in our most populated cities. It also includes the development of smart cities and smart solutions for urban renewal and to make our cities more livable, more competitive, and people-centered, but at the same time providing for growth within the business sector and also to provide the platform for more sustainable and green growth. And to date, we've actually, under the Build program, we've built nearly 30,000 kilometers of roads. These are either new roads or road linkages. Nearly 5,950, if you want to be exact, bridges. These are either widening of bridges, retrofitting of bridges, and building of new bridges. We've upgraded and retrofitted over 200 airports in the country. You mentioned, and also seaport projects. You mentioned the Cebu International Container Port Terminal. This is a major advancement in our logistics capability, and this was made possible with the partnership with the Korean Export and Import Bank. Korea is also very active, by the way, in other major build projects, such as the Pangil Bay Bridge. This is in the southern part of the country. It's a very, very ambitious bridge project. The Samar Pacific Coastal Road projects. We have river irrigation projects and drainage and disaster resiliency projects in low-lying areas in the country, in Pampanga, for example, which is about an hour and a half from Manila, the capital city, all being undertaken with the support of Korea. So, I think this is just the beginning. I've met with the officials of the Korean Export and Import Bank, and I think the potential for more partnerships is on the horizon. And I think this augurs well for our economic relations.
That sounds great. And the middle of all that, the Philippines has still done an excellent job in preserving its beautiful natural environment. And you have 6 World Heritage Sites. And among them, the historic city of Vigan is a city where Filipino and European cultures are creating unique atmosphere, keeping a painful history of about 300 years of Spanish colonial rule. And we're not able to travel right now, but when the COVID situation gets better and we start traveling to the Philippines, are there any places that you would like to recommend that we should include in our must-visit list in the Philippines?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, indeed. Well, we're very proud of our UNESCO heritage sites. These are both a combination of man-made sites, but also we also have World Heritage natural sites, such as a subterranean river system in Palawan, which I think is a must visit, especially for our Korean friends who are interested in ecotourism. We've made it a point to manage all these sites, whether they're man-made sites like Vigan or natural sites like the subterranean river, to an extent where we don't overstress the site. So it's a more mindful and really meaningful and sustainable way of preserving these sites for generations, not just for future generations of Filipinos, but also for people around the world who would like to come and visit these sites. You mentioned Vigan already, which is a beautiful city. It's in the part of the country where part of my family is from, actually. My mother is from that part of the country, in the northern part. But there are also so many other places to visit in the Philippines. For example, the island of the province of Bohol is one of our premier ecotourism sites with with attractions which you would not find anywhere else in the world. It is a top biodiversity site in the Philippines. It's the home, for example, to the tarsier, which is the world's smallest primate. It's just about, you can hold it in the palm of your hands. But I have a small hand, so maybe if visitors with larger hands, you can actually fit this small primate in your hands. But I think they're also managing this, and I don't think they really allow that such close contact anymore. But certainly you can see the tarsier. And we have the Chocolate Hills of Bohol, which is really an enigmatic geological formation. It's several hundred hills, all and during the dry season, from afar, these are colored brown, so they resemble, chocolate mounds, little chocolate mounds. That's why they're called Chocolate Hills, and it's also the home to a number of churches dating back to the colonial period, old massive churches with frescoes and carvings, which I think would be interesting for the culturally inclined and historically inclined tourists, and also a whole range of adventure tourism attractions, such as climbing, rappelling, spelunking, and water sports. So for ecotourism and for those who want to enjoy nature, the beauty of nature, Bohol is another destination. And of course, there are other, popular destinations in the country, and, like Boracay, Cebu, Clark, for the golf enthusiasts. And I know many of our Korean friends are golf enthusiasts, so they frequent these places. Of course, Manila has its own attractions, but because of the new normal, shall we say, we've really made strides. Our tourism ministry has made strides to really vaccinate as many of our tourism sector workers and staff members. In fact, in many of the premier tourism sites, the vaccination rates for the tourism industry workers are already at highs of 70s, 80s, and even in the 90% range, to ensure that visitors will feel confident and safe when they go to these places, when we finally open up to international travel again.
And the Filipinos and Koreans have so much respect for each other's culture, and especially when it comes to music and sports.
Yes,
we have
indeed.
So many Filipino K-pop bands, yes. And Koreans. You have no idea how many Koreans worship the Manny Pacquiao, the legendary wrestler. And the Philippines national basketball team is one of the top performing teams in international competitions. And Korea is showing a movement to expand the Asian Players Quota program for the 2022 and 2023 season, with a new Korean Basketball League president. And it will allow us to recruit excellent Filipino players. So can you tell us what the source of strength in boxing and basketball, and how you expect the Philippines exchanges with Korea and other Asian countries in various sports fields?
Well, basketball and boxing are the number one and the number two most popular sports in the Philippines. Basketball is ahead of boxing, but I think the strengths are for both of these sports is that they're easily accessible to anyone in the country. For basketball, you can go to any small town or any city in the Philippines, and you will find basketball courts, or even just half courts, or some improvised basketball courts anywhere in the country. It's been a long love affair with basketball, and I think it won't really ever end after it was first introduced in the Philippines in the 20th century. Boxing was also introduced at the turn of the 20th century in the Philippines, just after the Spanish-American War by some U.S. military military servicemen, and it's taken hold on the national imagination, and it remains a very popular sport. I think for boxing, like basketball, it's also the accessibility. When you decide to become a boxer, or you want to engage in that particular sport, all you really need for boxing are your fists and a pair of gloves, and these are easily attainable, easily secured, even for those with underprivileged backgrounds. So we don't have the resources for these things. You can engage in these both of these sports. And in boxing in particular, we've seen tremendous strides over the years. Just in the last Tokyo Olympics, just a few months ago, 3 of our boxers were able to win medals, bronzes and silvers, including women boxers. We had a woman boxer winning the silver in one of the boxing events. And I think it's a wonderful incentive for women and young girls who want to go into the athletic field to consider boxing. But boxing also, we have a network of scouts and trainers throughout the country who can easily identify and spot talent. There's an incentivized training program for our boxers. The most talented of them, those with the most potential, are able to get sponsorships and scholarships, both from the government and also from private benefactors. They go to really highly ranked high schools, for example, and those who enter into the national pool, they are given scholarships to the University of Baguio, which is very close to the National Training Center for national boxing athletes in the Philippines. So it's it's incentivized. We've reached a point where we've incentivize the system to allow us to recruit the best and the brightest and the most talented among our young boxers, and also to help promote and to help develop the existing pool of boxers. In the case of the basketball field, we have a very, very extensive school league system. So from elementary to high school to the university level, there are leagues everywhere. There's a professional basketball league. And many of our professional basketball players are actually now also playing for foreign leagues. Before the Korean Basketball League, before the KBL announced some movement, some possible movement to expand the Asian players quota program. The Japanese league, for example, has done that. And we have a few players, professional players, who are now part of the Japanese league. And we also have other players who are in some European leagues and even the Australian basketball league. So I think there's a lot of potential for cooperation and exchanges in this field. It would mean exposure to both the foreign leagues and Filipino players, to be exposed to playing styles, to teamwork styles, to various methods of really playing your optimal game in basketball. But there are also other sports where there's a lot of engagement between the Philippines and Korea. For example, the coaching pool for some of our national athletes in Taekwondo and in fencing include coaches and trainers from Korea. So we will probably see this increase in the coming years, because these are two sports where, of course, our Korean friends excel, and where I think the Filipino athletes would also like to excel more.
And my last question is everybody's favorite topic, which is food. So yes, the weather has gotten really cold here in Korea, and I hope that you have been staying warm. And although we have plenty of hot soups around to keep you warm, yes, there's gotta be a Filipino soul food that you always look for, or you always end up making for yourself at the end of the day. If there is such soul food, what would that be?
the soul food or the comfort food that I look forward to today in our cuisine, in Philippine cuisine, there are actually two. One is adobo, which is perhaps the most well-known Philippine dish. It's a dish primarily made with chicken, but it can also be done with pork and with other viands and ingredients. It has a nice mix of sourness and saltiness, which is the main Philippine palate. But the other one is a broth, is a soup called sinigang, which I believe is very popular among Koreans. I've seen quite a number of vlogs about it on social media, on YouTube, for example, about sinigang, which is it's a sour soup. Again, you can make it with seafood. You can make it with pork, with beef, with chicken, with shrimp, with fish. You can even make a vegetarian version of it, but it uses several kinds of souring ingredients, whether it's the Philippine lime, the Philippine lemon, or tomatoes. And I think it's a very heartwarming, very hearty meal for the colder months, but also not too heavy. Not too heavy, and you can also enjoy it during the warmer months. So those are the two kinds of food, of Filipino food, which I particularly like.
As soon as this interview is over, I am going to look for the recipe, and you know what I'll be doing this weekend.
Yes.
So, Your Excellency, thank you so much again for taking your time for this interview with us. And I look forward to working with you and your embassy on future programs. We have so much potential for collaboration. And in the meantime, once again, please stay warm and healthy. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Yvonne, and to all our friends at the Asia Society in Korea. We wish you a very productive winter ahead and a good 2022 to all of us. Keep safe.